let's talk about the Flash. So let's. I don't know your thoughts on it. I can guess your thoughts, but we've not reviewed it. So let's do a little group review of the Flash. Obviously, it's been out for a. It's not been out for. It's been out for
Couple
a week now.
days.
It's only been out a couple of days. Yeah, no. So Wednesday, it has almost been out for a week. Actually,
There was like a Monday preview screening, and then then it was technically released here Wednesday or Thursday, depending on where you were.
Yeah. So I mean, it was released here on a Wednesday. I watched it on Wednesday. So basically, it's been out for a week. What are your thoughts? Because I've given my thoughts. I actually liked it more than I thought I would, and I hate Ezra Miller. I think he's a douche canoe. His performance was all right, actually, in parts. I gave it a 5 out of 10. That's my quick summary. What do you think?
I think it hit me in a pretty strange way. I wasn't expecting much out of the film, and I wasn't disappointed because there wasn't a lot to it. I've said this before, and it's the truest statement I could come up with. This Ezra Miller film had an Ezra Miller problem, and it was Ezra Miller. There were too many of them. At one point, there's more than one. Let's just put it in those terms. But no, I mean, getting back to the seriousness of it all, I overall, there was a good movie there for like the first 3 minutes. And then
Jesus,
it went very much off the rails for me. A lot of this too is that it tried to pull from a story that all of us seem to be familiar with, Flashpoint. The problem is that it was just picking and choosing throughout the entire run of this film, tiny little elements that were there, and none of them were true to the nature of the Flashpoint at all. They'd changed so much of it that it wasn't going to appeal to somebody who knew a bit about it. And then I went with someone who knew everything about it. Like when the books came out,
they were really angry,
and they were very upset. And look, I can feel for them. I mean, you're talking about drastic changes in a lot of things, including the fact that there's no Superman. So it's just. And I know it's spoiler, everybody, but no, it's not really a spoiler. But it's just it was really rough, and it was probably, and this is saying something, probably the most convoluted film I've seen in 3 to 5 years. You could tell it was a patchwork quilt. You could tell that a lot of things were sewn together more than once. There were times you could see the reshoots because there was a different facial structure. There was a different physical build. There was, and those are just the things that are minor. There were some major stuff like hair issues and all kinds of other things. But setting all that aside, it was also sold in multiple different ways that were really disingenuous.
Greatest superhero movie of all time.
Believe me, I'll get to that. I'm sure we will as a group. But I
tweeted about that.
Yeah, it's not just that. It's that I was anticipating and hoping that Tom, my buddy Tom down there, was right in that I was getting a Batman movie with the Flash in it, and because I wanted to see 89 Batman again, and I didn't get that either.
You got the worst interpretation of 89 Batman because he's an idiot.
Yeah, there's a lot of things there, and of course I did enjoy, and this is the one part of it that I was like, oh well, that's kind of a fun way to explain a multiverse, like a bowl of spaghetti. I was like, that's pretty decent, but it just ultimately came down to visually it was muddled, the story was muddled. The acting was uneven and muddled. I mean, the muddled is the word I'm using here. You got the theme, but there is one scene, and everybody's already heard about it, with the babies that I was just done.
The baby shower,
and I was right. The baby shower, exactly. Tom.
That's brilliant. Good way of putting it.
And I
believe that's what they actually called it during the making of it.
Oh, you're joking? Really? Holy shit!
I referred to that quite a few times.
Wow.
It was so bad. And here's the problem: that's in the first 15 minutes of the film. So if you are already out during the first 15 minutes of a film, they're not pulling you back in. And if somebody says again that it is not woke in the first 10 minutes of the film, same 15 minutes. It goes woke AF. So,
So I think
I
it's
didn't
important
notice it. It was just more or less that it was so bad I didn't notice how woke it was. But anyway, sorry, go ahead, Nate. Sorry.
No, it's
well, I was
fair.
just going to say, I think it's important. We're talking about the baby shower thing, so it's obviously we're going to be touching on some slight spoilers here. I don't think anyone really cares too much about it anyway, but we have to talk about some slight spoilers. So let's. What are we referring to when we're talking about the baby shower? So in the first 15 minutes of the film, we're essentially all of the Ben Affleck scenes are there. That's fair to say. First 15 minutes.
He wasn't kidding about the 5 minutes. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so what happens is the Flash is called in to help Ben Affleck's Batman save a hospital. The hospital's part of it's about to fall as well, and part of that falling hospital is a baby ward or something.
And it's kind of convoluted because everybody else has been evacuated. Yeah,
and they're not, but the doors they can't
are jammed for some reason.
Well, yeah, some bollocks like there's some convoluted nonsense, but basically, it has the worst. So it has awful. It has some of the worst CGI, like PS2 grade CGI, and there's these babies floating around through the air, and it's really bad.
Yeah,
it's really bad. So that's what we're referring to, the baby shower.
And again, I mean, getting back into it real quick, and wrapping up my thoughts and review of it. The ending was unsatisfying. There was wasted cameos. There's nothing but shattered dreams for your love of Batman '89 at the end of it all. And that left me with a score that put this butt-sniffing Eternals right at just, I'm going to say 3.9 out of 10. So like normally I would have put it at a 4, but I was like, no, this is more offensive and destructive than Eternals was. And let me tell you, Eternals was not a good film.
Yeah, you can tell I watched this on a full belly, can't you? I gave it a 5.
Well,
God, I was hopped up on carbs. Holy shit!
Sorry, it just
it's good. It's good to see the differences.
I couldn't find 10 good minutes of the film to enjoy, and that's actually something that I really try to do when I watch a film. Is there 10 minutes here that really gave me my money's worth? And that's kind of how I judge modern films now, because we've lowered the bar so much. If I can't find 10 good minutes, then what was the point of this film?
Yeah. Okay. So, Tom, then thoughts?
Wow. Where to begin with this thing?
Can you recreate some scenes? Come on.
I might get there. Just overall, my initial thoughts, though, on the whole thing. I mean, my God, this made the time travel in Endgame make more sense. The spaghetti incident was like, I mean, well, there you go. There's a scene for you. Be like Michael Keaton, be all like, do you know that Guns N' Roses album? Appetite for Destruction? No, the other one. Use Your Illusion? No, the other one. Use Your Illusion 2? You dumb fuck, the spaghetti incident. Yeah, what about it? That's what you did to the multiverse. That was a horrible album, dude. I know! You made a horrible movie. You should feel bad. That's what it was. And much like the spaghetti incident, this movie is just chock full of stuff that's nothing but remakes. Like, really, at the end of the day, it's just nothing but endless remakes. I'm still curious on what woke stuff Culture found, because to me, the movie was just so bad from beginning to end, convoluted. The more I think about it, the more pissed off and anything I get about it, because it could have been a good movie, right? I've never been go ahead.
I was just gonna say, what was the woke stuff? Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
Yeah, go ahead, Culture. What was the woke thing we missed here? Because I missed out on that. What did I miss?
Okay, well, I'll give you the most blatant one in the first 10 minutes of the film. You ready? Wonder Woman shows up, saves the day, gets both guys' hands wrapped in the lasso of truth, and emasculates them both simultaneously.
Oh, that's right.
Bam!
Were they emasculate themselves?
I was more
come on now,
distracted by the if I want to fight crime.
She wasn't working hard to get the lasso of truth off of them.
I was more distracted by the if I want to fight crime, I should really fight poverty line than anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I didn't.
I don't know if I could give this a 2 or a 3 at best, maybe.
Wow.
Is it as bad as some superheroes? No, it's watchable in certain cases. But again, it just pisses me off because it could have been fun. It could have been a nice send off for the Snyder crew, and at the same time, a nice, celebration of the DC universe. And it just kind of landed like a limp noodle of spaghetti on Michael Keaton's plate. It really did. The whole that scene is basically a metaphor for the whole friggin' movie. Sorry, I'm trying to watch my language for the clips, but it's just I feel sorry for the general audience because they're going to be lost. I find it ironic that for months I was hearing rumors about them recasting and replacing Ezra Miller when how many Back to the Future jokes about him are in here. Like that is kind of almost ironic. But that's the other thing. The problem with this movie is it's one big Easter egg, right? Like if you don't get the joke about Eric Stoltz, if you don't know that, then you don't get the joke. Same thing with like the, certain cameos and such without getting into too many spoilers at this point. But, for anybody who might just be waiting
the
out.
directors even come out and just said, I don't care. Like if you didn't get the cameos, I don't care. And that says a lot, to be fair. Like,
well, there's something worse about this, and this is kind of a spoiler. The director has had to come out now and explain this movie because I pointed out a glaring problem with it. And that is they never introduce a third party into the equation of Barry's mother's murder. So the way this movie plays out, Barry kills his own mother from the start. And you can sit there and say, well, that's not the way it is in the story. That's the way it is in, not in the comic book, not in the animated version, and maybe not in certain people's headcanon. But guess what? The director himself had to say that, we didn't address it in this movie because we were planning on addressing it in a sequel. The sequel that's never coming. So forever in history, this movie, I've been pushing it. # Barry killed his mom. Because that's really what this movie boils down to.
Well, it's not even just that as well. Like, it's the fact that even if there was going to be a sequel, right? What's the story of that sequel? So he finds out that someone else killed his...
There's Eobon Thawne.
Who's going to go back and stop them and do the same thing? Like, it's the same story.
Well, it would be him versing the man who actually killed his mother then. That's the point I think he was getting at. But you have to introduce it here. You have to at least sprinkle it in here, right? The idea. Because that's the way it is.
The same, isn't it?
Sorry.
It's the same motivation. It's the same. Everything is the same. You should just go to like Gorilla Grodd or something like that. Like, you can't say it's the same thing, the same emotional weight and conviction for the movie becomes identical to the first one. It's so dumb.
Well, and that's kind of the problem with the original Flashpoint story is he never really does. That's not his motivation from the start. His motivation is just to stop his mom from being murdered. And then at the end of the day, instead of actually doing something that would get his dad out of prison for, I don't know, a lot sooner, considering technically if you stop to think about it, he basically framed his own dad vicariously to go to prison for that long. He still sits there forever until that video finally gets cleared up. You know what I mean?
It's not even that his video. It's not even that the video gets cleared up. It's that it's actually that's just a random fluke on the multiverse.
And look, we just saw a trial. What was it, last year, the year before, whatever it was, where video evidence like that not very admissible when it's been manipulated.
Yeah,
I said that right out loud in the theater. I'm like, that's inadmissible.
God damn. Yeah. So, I mean, let me. Is that you sort of round out review?
There's more I could get into. There's tons of things that I could dive into as far as what's wrong with it. I could nitpick it apart. Like I said, though, the more I think about it, it's not so much that I disliked it. It's more so that I'm upset that it could have been something good. Right? There is the kernel of an idea here, especially in that scene between Ezra and Ben when the Flash finally figures out, oh, I have more in common with this guy than I realized. We both lost parents. We're both kind of like detectives. We're both superheroes. You know, there's there could have been a through line there that they used for this movie that didn't need to be all convoluted up by all the rest of the Justice League. Because I even said at the end of the day, this movie feels more like a Justice League movie than the Justice League movies did. Either or, which pick your poison, whether it's the Zack Snyder one or the Joss Whedon one. I mean, it felt more like they were all at least there for a reason, even if some of them were shorter cameos. I mean, you could tell Sasha was cut out to the bare minimum. I see a lot of people coming after James Gunn for this. Look, James Gunn was still in college when they shot this movie, right? Like, I mean, I'm not totally wrong.
Yeah, this has been done for a while.
And I mean, I love that people are blaming him for it. It's like nothing he cut out or changed stopped people from going to the theaters.
That's true.
So you can't blame him for all he did was stop any promises that were coming forward that weren't going to be fulfilled. That's really all he did. Exactly. I mean, do I agree with his joke at the end with the final cameo? No, I think it's stupid. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. This is over with. It was a nice send off to the Snyderverse, I guess, even though we got 1.5 more movies to sit through. But I think this movie is more indicative of the problems, and I've said this on a few other podcasts now. This movie basically encapsulates everything that's been wrong with the last few years of not just superhero movies, but tentpole films, bloated, big, overblown films. It's overdone the multiverse to death now. We've had 3 or 4 movies in the last year or so with just multiverse endless shit. And that's just in the last year. We can go back even further and get more and add to the bunch if we wanted to. But that's my point is it feels like we finally hit a brick wall with this. And it's almost ironic that it was with the fastest man alive with the slowest movie ever made.
Yeah.
This movie literally took 6 to 8 years to be made, guys. I mean, I'm not even exaggerating. It was announced back in 2014.
Yeah. So I'd like to go into some of my thoughts a little bit further and cover some of the things that you guys didn't, right? So I think I gave it like a 5 to 6 out of 10, something like that. I think it was 5 or 6 out of 10, middling. I liked it a lot more than I thought I was going to, and a lot of that, and I hate Ezra Miller, so I'm being honest. A lot of that was down to Ezra Miller's performance, as like when he's doing the heartfelt stuff, when he's not his weird, young, annoying self thing. But it, and that's all fine. Like as I'm sure Tom will agree and has said, it's those things, and along with the other stuff, that there's a glimmer of a good movie in there somewhere.
Yeah.
But also, and it is, and I struggle to justify Michael Keaton being in it. Like he's good. It's nice to see him. It's just a pure nostalgia. It's nice to see him. But would you? I don't know whether I could recommend this film for someone that wants to just watch Michael Keaton.
I have a metaphor for him. Yeah, I don't know if you'll get this much, Mr. H, but I know some of our audience, maybe culture will. This movie felt like when a band turns around and redoes all their greatest hits and releases an album.
Oh yeah, no, I
like it's the same songs, but it's got a little bit of a new flavor to it. But at the end of the day, it's kind of pathetic and sad because all you see is Michael Keaton literally going through the motions and saying all the lines you expect him to say, to the point where I even pointed this out when we did our review the other night. The whole audience pretty much said in unison, "I'm Batman," because they knew it was coming, right? Like it's so like you could telegraphed and sad in a weird way. It's kind of pathetic.
Yeah. No, I agree. But I don't know whether I could recommend, and I said this in my review on the main channel, is whether I could recommend this to anyone that wants to just see Michael Keaton back, because at the end of the day, he's very underused, and spoilers, he's not that smart because he ends up killing himself multiple times as well. And I guess, is that just to save the wider narrative? Yeah, maybe, etc. I don't know. But it's not a great send-off for a character that people love either. Now, Supergirl is an interesting one, right? Because I didn't hate her. Didn't hate her at all, actually. Hated what they did with the character to prop her up, though. And this is writing. This is Christina Hodson, who I believe wrote Birds of Prey, if I remember rightly. And that speaks volumes. I'm pretty certain she did. culture. You can Google this for me if that's all right. But
Google.
what they did to prop Supergirl up was have her have the codex in her body. Why? So she was the one that had the codex, and Kal-El was murdered as a baby. It's just like, fuck off. This kind of stuff just makes you go, come on, really? You don't need to do that, you know? And also that it seemed that didn't seem to be an element that was actually important, right? You didn't need Supergirl to be enraged at Kal-El's death as a baby for the impetus of that fight to happen, right? They were going to have that fight anyway. So that's, it's another thread to the bow of self-destruction that they were, on a course of for the...
Yeah, because she already knew who he was, right? Like, yeah, I mean, that's what
she already agreed. She already agreed to fight with him. So they were going to fight anyway.
They kind of neglect to let you know that she was already a teenager or whatever when she left.
Yeah,
not Krypton, but the other planet.
Yeah,
I forget what planet she's come. But she even acts like she's from Krypton anyway, so I guess it would be on Krypton. So whatever.
But they were going to have. But what my point is General Zod and Supergirl were going to have the fight anyway.
Yeah.
The writer didn't need to add the additional dialogue of, yeah, well, I murdered Kal-El as a baby, basically, right? And actually, I did it unnecessarily because you've got the codex. It's in your blood. It's not necessary. They're going to have the fight. So, you have like, when writers write something, it's to get from point A to point B and to explain why that happens. And sometimes writers, terrible Hollywood ones who are striking at the moment, add additional things which make you hate them and hate what they're doing. And that was one of those things that they just didn't need to add because they were going to get to point A to B anyway because of something that they had written earlier in the film, which was, I will help you. Oh, okay, cool. So they're going to have a fight then, aren't they? Fucking just ridiculous. And I didn't really get young, creepy Barry Allen's obsession with trying to consistently, like, why he randomly just wanted to save Supergirl and went mental about it. Bizarre.
Because I think there's a lot chopped out of there, H. I think.
Yeah, well, yeah.
As far as, because you can tell there's definitely like, okay, here's the thing where there's also like a conflict between both the Barrys that I don't think was explored enough. You have, let's say, version A Barry or older middle Barry, whatever. He is still obsessed with Iris, right? He wants to get back to his timeline so he can get with Iris. This younger Barry, he is not really into Iris yet. He's just meeting Supergirl for the first time. You can tell he's got a thing for Supergirl. There was clearly probably more in this movie setting them up to have like this little romance thing going on. And that's why he's determined to save her. But you're right. They don't give you that motivation there to go, oh, okay. So he's different also because of this. See, that's the thing is there's so many different things about this Barry to where if they would have made the Barry so different and they would have shown certain things in the movie to go, because they do kind of set up a little bit there, but like at the same time, it makes no sense. It should have shifted the other way around at the end. And the other Barry should have been like, no, mom's going to die no matter what. And when our Barry should have been against it, but just finally accepts it. Because it would have made more sense to have the twisted Barry who grew up with a mother who would rather be like, no, because of this, I got to do this no matter what. It was kind of weird to have him the way they kind of, because he even says flat out, you're going to kill mom, which is also what put it in my head in the first place. Plus that creepy scene where he comes up to his mom dressed like a murderer. Like, it's like, boy. That's weird. But it's just, there was ways you could have done this. That in that third act, just having Supergirl in there in general, the whole Zod thing felt like BVS and Justice League all over again, where we've got this tacked on third act thing that doesn't belong. When the third act should have been about him fighting whoever killed his mother. Really, at the end of the day, let's be real. And if as much as they had to reshoot this movie and they knew where they were going, they should have found a way to finagle that in there. And it wouldn't have been too hard. You could have found a way. It's preposterous because there was other things from the Flashpoint storyline that didn't make sense in the first place that they brought in here and brought in new convoluted reasons for it. And it's like, why didn't you just leave it out? And the whole cameo thing was stupid because it makes no difference or makes no sense. And serves zero purpose.
Yeah. Well, so Culture has just confirmed to me that I was indeed correct, that Christina Hodson is the writer of The Flash, and Christina Hodson did write Birds of Prey. Why
Yes.
on earth would you fucking get her back? I mean, granted, this has been in the can for a while, but oh my God! Surely you'd get someone else to redo her work. But that speaks volumes as to why they did that with Supergirl, and just, yeah, terrible. Basically, my review and everyone else's review, not a great movie.
No.
I can't recommend it. It was better than I thought it was going to be, absolutely, but I can't recommend it. And I think I said exactly the same thing on my
I agree with you. This one's going to be a
review.
bit more mixed than some of the other DC properties, but at the end of the day, I think most people will feel better if they just wait for it on video on demand.
Yeah, because I mean, I was rather plain spoken in my own review, and to be fair, you know, I keep finding more problems rather than, you know, enjoyment in the film. So I'm sticking by my 3.9 out of 10.
No, good.